Hey, this is Lee Balcom, and just got back a couple of days ago from having a chance to do my first paddleboard trips of the year. I had a couple of chances to paddle out into the waterway, which is probably one of my favorite places to be. So much life teeming around. And the reason I was able to do it is because the weather is warming up, and that's kind of the nice thing about this. Now, I need to add in why I'm talking to you about this now. Why are we talking about the weather? Because the weather marks a transition point. And the transition is that we are, at least in the United States, facing the beginning of summer. Or everywhere else, you're probably feeling some shift in the season too. But in the United States, the official start of, or unofficial start of summer is Memorial Day, and we are fast approaching that day. Why does that matter? Well, there are a few spikes in the beginnings of legal processes for divorce. And what I've noticed is that they're true in the United States, but they are true elsewhere. I've checked around and they are true elsewhere. So first of all, there is a huge spike in inquiries, what has been called National Divorce Day, and that is the first Monday after the new year. We are now, almost 6 months past that. But there's a spike then because people are doing the whole new year, new me, let's get started with the changes, let's move on with what needs to happen. So that kind of makes sense to people. Now, that is a spike in the day, right? That day marks it, where people are like, okay, new year has passed and now I've got to get on track. That day is a huge spike. The week also spikes, but that's a huge day. Now, this coming period and the other period where the spike in filings and the spike in inquiries is not about a day. So it's not Memorial Day, which is probably most legal offices are closed, but around just before and for a couple of weeks after into June, that is another spike in when people are inquiring about or filing paperwork for divorce. I'm going to come back to why that is in a minute, but let me tell you the other kind of deadline for people, and that is at the end of summer. So in the United States, around Labor Day, right? Labor Day. So if you think of that as the end of August, that's when, if people are in kind of the school setup where we start buckling down for the fall schedule, right? Things are getting back into a regular routine, and people are like, okay, now that we're back in the regular routine, I'm going to do what I need to do. Now that we're back on schedules, we've had a summer as maybe a family, our last summer together, that kind of thing. So that's the end of the summer. We're facing the beginning of summer. And that's when people say, okay, you know what? It's time for me to take action here. We'll have all summer long to kind of get used to this. We'll have the fact that in summer, I mean, I don't know about you, but as you can see, I am in short sleeves and things are a little more relaxed. You may still be working and that kind of thing, but at least for me, it clicks in that there's a relaxation that comes with it. Maybe there's vacation, maybe there's trips, maybe there's family traveling, maybe the kids are not in school and so they can adjust to things. But whatever it is, there's a psychological shift, especially for people kind of in my age range, because most of us were out of school in summer. It's transition in some places, and so there may be some changes that will come down the road. But right now, summer is kind of a shift in psychology and mentality and scheduling. And so what people think is, well, that gives us these next 3-ish months to kind of recongeal around the new family situation. And so this is the point when people are going, now's the time. And what we're trying to figure out is how to make it the question of, is now the time? Can I wait? Maybe something is shifting here. Why I bring this up is because I don't want you to be going, oh my gosh, it's coming. I'm going to be waiting at the door on Tuesday the 28th and Wednesday the 29th, waiting for me to be served with papers. That's not what I want for you. I want to give you a caution that now is the time to really be getting serious about what to do. So let's talk about why we're at this situation. There are links as I go through videos. There are links that appear above for the videos I'm talking about. So one of them is where I talk about the cause of most marital crises. And it's not a cause, it's like you drop off a cliff. It's like you approach this and you have a chronic situation that finally becomes a crisis situation. The chronic situation happens because at some point early on in a relationship, people hit the pause button. They have a pause button marriage, which means that they're going, you know what? We're so busy with life. We've got these kids coming along. We've got activities. We've got careers to handle. We've got all of these things. We're going to hit pause. We've already done this dating thing and this courting thing. And now we're married. Now that we're married, we've got to get back to life. And so they hit the pause button, forgetting to notice that the relationship is back to life, that the relationship is the place where you have to make that the priority in life. And because they haven't done that, they hit the pause button. And the pause button begins to choke off the relationship. And over time, when you choke off the connection that you need in a relationship, when you think you've put it into suspended animation, and what you've really done is you've set the stage for the decline of the relationship, for the decline of the connection, then you begin to notice or not notice the fact that it is beginning to fall apart until you notice it in a chronic situation. A crisis situation then hits. The chronic is just kind of building along, and you may go, yeah, these things aren't where they should be, but we'll get back to that. And I hear this many times. People are like, I know that things weren't good, but I figured we would get back to it at retirement, when the kids were launched, when the career was set, when, on and on it goes. We always have a just down the road from here, we'll get back to this. I thought that was what was going to happen. And suddenly my spouse says, I'm not happy and I'm done. Not just I'm not happy, we'll get back to working on this, but I'm done. And so there are these spike periods during the year when we see the chronic become crisis, when action is taken and surprises people. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I don't want you surprised. I want you to be ready to take action. So if you're wondering, then what do you do? One of my suggestions is you start working on the reconnection and start taking responsibility for your part of reviving the relationship. Many times I hear people say, well, I'll do it if my spouse does. And if both people are saying, I'll do it if my spouse does, nothing's going to happen. What you need to change to is, I'll do this until my spouse also steps in. I'll do it on my own until my spouse steps in. Last video, I talked about the fact that you can actually start working on your marriage alone. In another video, I talked about part of the core of that is working on reconnecting. And so part of what I've tried to do is create resources so that you can move forward, even if your spouse isn't ready to do that. And the way we do that is working on those 3 C's: connect, change, create. Connect with your spouse. The video on connecting with your spouse is very important for you to understand, because there are these 3 levels of connection that go into this. So that's a part of the foundation of my program, is how do you reconnect in powerful ways? So you connect, change yourself. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with you or broken with you. I do know that all of us stagnate over time. If we are not careful, if we don't nurture our growth mindset, if we don't nurture our continuing to grow and change and transform, we stagnate. And I think you can probably think back and go, yeah, there are a few things that I've stagnated about and I should be taking care of, and I haven't. That's the change. What are the changes you need to make? And then there's the create. Another video I talked about what the real role of marriage is, about creating a we, right? Finding that way to becoming a we. And creating a new path is that. Because what many people tell me is, we just need to get back to that place where, back there, it wasn't so bad. I just want you to know that back there is what got you to here, right? So let's say that you're driving down the street and you realize you're at the wrong place. It's a dead end. And you say, well, I'll just go back to the beginning of the street and start over, going the same way you are now. That just gets you to the dead end. You need to go back and find a new route, create a new path, the one that leads you to being a we. Talked about that in other places too. So part of what we are wanting to do is create this plan of A, connecting with your spouse, B, changing, C, creating that new path. Now, I mentioned my Save the Marriage system. And the reason I bring it up is because it has been so transformational for people to change their marriage, to save their marriage around the world. I don't think there's a place, maybe Antarctica, I haven't looked at, I don't think there's a place in the world that my program hasn't been used. Certainly every continent and many, many different places. And so part of what I want to do is invite you to do that, but I want to step further into that because there are a couple of things I really think need to happen very quickly. One of the things I offer for people when they purchase my system, and you can find it at savethemarriage.com. That's savethemarriage.com. So when you grab my system, I give you a free week of my VIP program. Why is that important? Well, one of the things I have in there is a template for you to build your plan around connecting, changing, creating. There's a template for you to fill out and make sure you're following. And there are lots of different trainings that help you to understand how to do that. There is a 10 Principles of Saving Your Marriage series that will get you up to speed as fast as you can get up to speed. Because one of the things you want to be working on is an apology letter. I have an apology letter formula that is transformational for both people, the person writing it and the person receiving it. And I have a specific formula for that that I include in that VIP program, and you can access it during your free week. You can create that. And guess what? There is still time to get that done before Memorial Day passes, before the beginning of summer passes, if you get busy with this, but we've got to get started. One of the things that often happens is people, when they're dealing with a chronic situation, decide not to take action until it's a crisis. And it is a lot harder to deal with a crisis than it is to deal with a chronic situation. Think about that in your health. Sure, there are probably some chronic nagging things, but you let them go on, and then suddenly it's a crisis medical situation. Let's say you have chronic high blood pressure, right? Your blood pressure is up for an extended amount of time, and over time that takes its toll on your body, and suddenly you end up with a crisis situation, as opposed to having dealt with it along the way. Same with cholesterol. It's chronic in your system, but nothing is done until suddenly there's a blockage in your system. Same with diabetes, right? People do some things to deal with it, but sometimes they don't really get it under control until suddenly it's a crisis and they have to deal with it. And then it's a whole lot harder to dig out of that. It's the same with your marriage crisis. It's likely that it's been chronic for a while, and you may not have even a spouse saying, "I'm done," for you to know internally that this is a problem, that you need to move forward. So what do? What you do is you get busy as soon as you are ready to face that. So first time you're going to is when you say, "Hey, I think there's a problem." Many times people will tell me, "I wish I had gotten started 6 months ago, 3 months ago. I wish I'd gotten started years ago." But there's one of my favorite proverbs is the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. In other words, if you need a tree, the best time to have planted, if you need that wood, the best time to have planted it was 20 years ago. The proverb continues, the second best time, now. If you haven't planted the tree you're going to need, don't wait any longer. Don't assume there's something else that's going to give you more time. Now is the time to do that. Part of what I have been encouraging people to do is not wait until you are on your last legs and begging a spouse to give you a chance, but to build towards something else before we get there. So how do you do that? Starting now. Starting now. If you know that you are in a chronic situation, or if you know that there's a crisis, don't let it get worse. Don't let it continue down that road. Let's get it turned around. How do you start? Go grab my system at savethemarriage.com. That's savethemarriage.com. First of all, join my VIP. When I offer it to you, it is the only time you can get a free week of that. Grab that. Use the material there. I also invite you to get a get started session with one of my coaches. No charge for that either. You have to also claim that. We don't force any of this on you. You get to choose what you're going to do. Start at savethemarriage.com. That's savethemarriage.com. After you make the purchase of the system, sign up for the VIP. I encourage you to do that. It's free. If you decline it, it's the last chance to get it for free. Then when you're downloading your program, and it is accessible anywhere in the world on pretty much any device, make your request for a coaching session. My coach will get in contact with you and get that scheduled. But don't wait. We are there. We are on the cusp of one more spike in the year. Don't let this one pass without making some changes. This is Lee Balcom wishing you the best as you work to save your marriage, starting now.